Hello and welcome to the video. In this video it's a very quick tip just talking about how you set up Crossfire for a standard PWM output system, something like a standard fixed wing that doesn't have a flight controller. Now there's a whole series on the channel about the TBS Crossfire, goes into all of the ins and outs. This is just to answer a specific question from a subscriber around how you set it up to work like this. Now the first tip of course is don't use one of the really small receivers, use the standard diversity receiver from Crossfire that has 8 PWM outputs, and those little PWM outputs can be configured as anything. So this is actually not as complicated as it first appears. Now the first thing to do whenever you get a receiver like this is to go through the process of updating it. So either through the script in the radio, or if you have the bigger Crossfire here, just press and hold the menu button and then select bind. Apply power to the receiver, and if it doesn't start updating automatically, just press the bind button and it will go through the updating process. Once it's bound to the radio, then you can actually go in and you can start doing some really cool stuff. Now, while this is just updating on screen, let me quickly comment about the fact that this receiver has a little battery inside. So even in the event of your plane that you're flying with this thing coming down, you can use the find model function to still locate it, because the little battery inside will actually be providing power to the system, so you'll be able to use that find system that I talked about again in that TBS Crossfire little series that this will be part of. So once it's updated, it kind of looks like that. There's the power system, so the negative pins, just for your information, are away from the label. That's actually shown in the manual. It isn't written on here anywhere, but you can see clearly we have our 8 PWM outputs. Now by default they are mapped to the standard 8 channels, just as if you're using something like an 8XR receiver. So let me just show you how you check that. We'll do it through the Lua script. So we'll go into the Crossfire directory, press and hold enter to execute the Lua script. Again, if you're not sure about Lua scripts, there's a whole video that you can go and watch about them. And here are all the settings for the diversity receiver on the radio. We can set the kind of mode it's in, we can set whether we want telemetry on or off, what to do in the event of a failsafe, and we'll look at that in a minute, and then what the SBus update rate is as well if you select SBus for one of the outputs. Now the output map, you'll notice there are 8 of these. These are the PWM pins that are actually on the receiver, and by default it's matched exactly to the channel outputs that you'd expect from the radio. So channel 1, the output 1 on the OpenTX system, is going to come out on PWM pin 1s, etc., all the way through. Now the channel map's a little bit different. The channel map is if you decide to output PPM on one of the outputs, then this is how the channels are mapped, and you'll notice we go down to 12. But if we are going to run something like a standard traditional fixed wing model without a flight controller, then we probably want to play with the channel output map, because the output map is the one that's going to allow us to move things around. Now normally if you wanted to move a channel, you'd do it through OpenTX through the output screen, but in here you can do it as well. So if you find that you want to swap the elevator and aileron around, maybe you've accidentally plugged the servo into the wrong output, you can absolutely change it in here. But even more interestingly, you can do exactly the same as you can with the other Crossfire receivers, and that is you can set it to output the LQ status, the RSSI status, PPM, or anything else as well. So this provides a huge amount of flexibility and an extra level of customization on top of a standard set of receivers that you typically use with an FR Sky radio or Free Sky radio, something like the X8R, by being able to individually access both the PWM outputs and how those outputs map to the output channels on the radio, or the outputs in something like the PWM pins. Then you can just set it up exactly how you want it, and if you accidentally plugged in a servo into the wrong output, or the ESC's plugged into the rudder output or something wacky like that, you can just fix it. Last thing to talk about then is the failsafe. Now you want to make sure with something like this the failsafe is set. If you're not going to using any kind of flight controller, you want the control surfaces and throttle to go back to a neutral position. What you need to do is to execute the Lua script again, and then go down, make sure that the failsafe mode is set to failsafe position, because you want all the PWM values to go back to where you need them to be. Then go into the Crossfire transmitter, and then with all of the controls in the position you want them to be at failsafe, hit the set failsafe button, you'll get the set word will appear by the side of it, and now when the receiver loses power, it will go into that failsafe condition. Hopefully that will keep your plane in the air while you sort it all out. So hopefully that's interesting for those of you that are kind of looking at this and maybe looking at using one of these larger receivers in a fixed wing plane where you're not going to have a flight controller and you have all those additional options too. If you found that video useful or like the content, then please hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you want to go the extra step, you can become a Patreon of the Painless 360 channel and help provide support for what I do here. All the videos created here are put into playlists, so if you're interested in a particular topic, have a look at the playlist, and they all are organised in there to make them easier to use. If you're not sure if there's a video for your particular problem or topic you want to know more about, then add Painless 360 to the Google search term that you're interested in, and that should find the video, article or content about the particular thing that you're interested in having a look at.